story begins in Moscow. I had been invited to the Moscow International Film Festival to present a film. I was walking through Red Square with my interpreter when we saw a man being mobbed by hundreds of people for his autograph. "Oh my God," said my interpreter, "it's Dean Reed." I said, "Who's Dean Reed?" "Who's Dean Reed?" exclaimed Oleg. "I can't believe you've never heard of him. Why, he is the most famous American in the whole world."
Young people everywhere come from all around, every race and creed, black, white, and brown, come to raise our voice, raise them loud and clear, all our many friends they can't hear. And when the people ask us if what them will stand, what will be our answer from each and every land, we'll raise the voice together, we'll sing it out so loud for everyone to hear that's in the crowd. We'll say da 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 da, we'll say ya 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 ya, we'll say we, we'll say see, we'll say yes, we'll say bang 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 bang. So come on everybody, sing along. We'll say da 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 da, we'll say ya 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 ya, we'll say we, we'll say see, we'll say yes, we'll say bang 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 bang. So come on everybody, sing along. And when repressive voices they start to sing their song, they'll try to make us follow in their many wrongs. They'll lie to bribe this window, they'll try to make us kill, but nothing can be done against our will. Yeah. Millions of our brothers and sisters everywhere, all progressive people will start to be aware of peace and love and freedom. That will be our song. Come on, everybody, sing along. We'll say da 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 da. We'll say ya 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 ya. We'll say we. We'll say
Ну, во-первых, у него очень приятный голос, прекрасно играет на гитаре и очень обаятелен.
Эстрадные и политические песни нам нравятся. Но нравится, если, во-первых, он красивый мужчина.
Ну что, хороший парень, наш простой. Работяга.
Ну, в общем, знаем, наверное, довольно-таки мало все-таки. Но песни мы очень любим.
Совсем недавно на кинофестивале я смотрела фильм его «Пой, ковбой, пой». Вот там он играл главную роль. И что я могу сказать? Фильм был очень веселый. Это была его собственная постановка. Ну, мне нравится как актер. Что я еще могу сказать?
When I see her walk, I hear thunder. When I hear her talk, I see lightning. When she whispers in my ear, whispers soft so I can hear. Thunder and lightning, thunder and lightning, thunder and lightning all night long.
Дина Рида мы приветствуем не только как певца и актера, но и как автора фильма и режиссера фильма, который он снял в ГДР. Фильм называется «Пой, ковбой, пой». Вы этот фильм сегодня увидите. Позвольте представить слово Дину Риду.
Здравствуйте, я очень рад видеть вас. У меня один большой проблем. Я не говорю по-русски. Я говорю испанский, итальянский, немецкий, чуть-чуть по-английски. Aber я не по-русски очень трудно. I'm very, very happy to be here in Moscow again at the festival.
Я очень счастлив снова быть в Москве на фестивале.
This is the first comedy that I've tried to make in my life.
Это первая комедия, которую я попытался поставить. Первая комедия в моей жизни.
Because I believe that laughing, to laugh is also very, very important.
Sing Cowboy Sing ist seit 4 Monaten in den Filmtheatern der DDR und hat schon etwa 700.000 Besucher. Das ist ein fantastisches Ergebnis für ein so kleines Land wie die DDR.
Ну, в общем-то, я вам должна сказать, что думаю о Дин Риде. Но я, наоборот, знаю его больше как исполнителя. Вот, и я люблю его песни. Правда, некоторые. Мне нравятся такие его обработки американских песен, как «This land is your land», и как же она называется, я даже не могу вспомнить. «We shall overcome».
This train is built for speed now, this train is built for speed now, this train is built for speed now, fastest train you ever did see now. This train is bound for glory, this train.
But once I was playing around with my radio, and suddenly I tuned in a Russian version of The Voice of America. And that was a sort of a program on request. And the announcer said, here we've got a letter from Nikolai X from Makhachkala, and he asks us to play the lost recording of an American singer whose name is Dean Reed. Dear listeners, there is no American singer whose name is Dean Reed. We don't know such a name. He does not exist. That's why, dear Nikolai X, we shall play for you the lost recording of The Doors.
I used to think that peace and love were just the same. Then I learned that life is not only a game. Each man must fight and fight again. But never, never, never let your life just flow away. Let your life have value every day. Always, always, always give your life for the dream. Don't forget, young man, at times life's not just as it seems.
Well, I'm an Illinois farmer. I grew up on a hog and corn farm. 9 out of 10 of us are conservatives. But I'm a conservative, and he is an admitted socialist. He has offered to pay half of my fare if I wanted to come over, but I'm not interested in those countries over there.
I had Dean's picture imprinted on this little shirt, little T-shirt. You can't see it because now it's all faded, but anyway, it's a good-looking picture of Dean, right? And underneath it says Dean Reed's mom. And so I could see myself going into customs in East Berlin, you know, and flipping over my coat and saying, here I am, you know, sort of thing. Of course, it went over like, as I said, a lead balloon, right? It just, or a deflated balloon. It simply didn't go over at all. The Germans didn't see anything funny about it. They didn't understand what I was doing. And when Dean met me, he was really furious with me. He didn't laugh either. I still think it's a cute joke. Anyway, I'll never do that again.
When I left Colorado, it was many years ago. The blue skies were clear as ever. The sun, it was bouncing off the snow.
After we got married, my husband was a school teacher, as you well know. Cyril was a teacher. And we moved to a farm just on the outskirts of Denver. And Dean was born in Lakewood, Colorado at this small chicken farm that we owned. And we had a very, very small house because the chickens needed large chicken houses, right? But we only needed a little tiny house. But he was a charming child, sweet and with this big smile. And he was in Boy Scouts and 4-H club where he had a pigeon project. And then, of course, he went to the military school and learned how to ride. And he took first prize at the stock show in jumping. He had 2 horses of his own that he trained. He became a track star. He ran not only the mile, but also other races.
I can remember so well that poor little boy. He was only 12 or 13 years old, scared to death, in a great big auditorium, Phipps Auditorium. I think they named it after Senator Phipps from Colorado. He was a little guy. He was called Slim Reed in the early stages. And he got up on that stage and playing his guitar. I know he was scared to death.
Well, I remember, I think we got it for his Christmas. Was it Christmas one year that we bought him a guitar, and he just simply took off. From there on, he did a lot of volunteer things too, like singing for the Kiwanis or singing for the hospital up at Grand Junction, for the Veterans Hospital. And he was always doing things for people as far as his voice and guitar was concerned.
My life's dream to be a real cowboy.
When we first began research for this film project, the earliest mention of Dean Reed we found in U.S. periodicals was a 1956 Newsweek article. At the age of 17, Dean made a 25-cent bet with Wild Willie Smith that he could outrace a mule for 110 miles. 47 hours later, Dean Reed collapsed at the finish line.
I had gone to lunch and someone had a newspaper, and there, of course, was Dean's picture about him racing this mule 110 miles and winning the quarter. I still have the quarter. Did I show you the quarter I still have that he won with this race? Of course, I was really worried about it because 110 miles is a long ways to run, and I called him up and thought, oh, he'd be in the hospital or something. But no, there he was singing that night with his blistered feet. The show must go on type of thing.
Shooting all the bad men dead, jumping into your bed, riding you just like a real cowboy.
I think there are only 2 things that I've kept with me for the 20 years since I left America. One is this guitar, a Martin guitar, which I took with me when I left, it has been in the jungles with me in Brazil, in Bangladesh, and this buckle are the only 2 things that I've kept for the 20 years since I left America that has traveled throughout the world with me day by day. They know my life better than any of better than my children or better than my father and mother or my wife. They were there through all of my experience.
I'm just a country boy. Money have I none, but I've got silver in the stars. I've got gold in the morning sun, and I've got gold
I began at 12 to play the guitar. I think probably the only reason one begins to play the guitar at 12 is to impress girls at that time. I was a very shy boy. I would think maybe an insecure boy to a point. I did not have that good a relationship with my father, where I was the rebel of the 3. I was the only one at this school
who the whole time had his radio on hillbilly music. And at that time, hillbilly music was not popular.
So when did you start performing?
I became a performer at the university because my older brother Dale was already studying at the university, and my father didn't have enough money to pay the tuition for both of us and to give us our living expenses for the apartment and eating. And so the only possibility so that I could go to the university was to take my guitar and every evening to go into the restaurants and to sing for the tips. At that time, nobody paid me. I sang for the tips which the people gave to me at each table. Then during the summers, I sang at the dude ranches in Estes Park in order to pay my way through the universities.
A meteorologist was studying for 2 years meteorology at Colorado University, and then he quit and went to Hollywood. He bought a Chevrolet Impala convertible, and he probably owned one or two of the tires on it, and he started to Hollywood. And on the way out there, he picked up a hitchhiker, and that hitchhiker was an old has-been entertainer. And he took him over to Capitol Records, and Voyle Gilmore was the big shot there at that time, and Gilmore listened to him sing 2 or 3 songs and signed him up for 7 years.
You'd better keep her by your side.
He hung on and hung on and hung on. He got a few TV, Bachelor Father, and so on.
How about everybody coming over to my house? I have that new Dean Reed album, and it's a real gasser. That's for me. Let's go. Quiet, please. Students, parents, before the drum majorette contest starts, I am happy and thrilled to announce that one of our most distinguished alumni is with us tonight and will sing his latest hit recording, Twirly Twirly. Let's have a nice welcome back for Dean Reed.
I went to a football game and I never will forget that pretty little majorette just whirling around and whirling around, and she got me so upset. That pretty little majorette. Twirly, 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 tippity pop pop, oh, she dropped it. Twirly, 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 twirly.
Hollywood was a very bad time. Hollywood was a time of fear. Hollywood was a time of exploitation. Hollywood is a prostitution camp. Hollywood is a place where very few people, I think, are able to keep their integrity. Of course, there are many people who have their integrity in Hollywood, and these are the people I respect, who were able to keep this integrity. It was a time that was not especially that happy. The best part of Hollywood, of course, was finding the best friend of my life, Mr. Paton Price. And because of Paton, I didn't lose my integrity in Hollywood. Because of him, I was not only remained with my integrity, I became a better human being during this time in Hollywood because of Paton, though.
And he was astonished by this new world that he'd been catapulted into, and perhaps the quality of the people that he had found. He found it not to be the usual Hollywood, hard, hustling, commercial type of people, but youngsters who were really interested and dedicated to film. Because I was teaching the film aesthetics and film principles and film techniques. The basic thing I think that impressed Dean, which he has kept. The instrument that you use in performing is what you stand up in. And the quality of that instrument and the quality of your life is the quality of your performing, your quality as an artist. And I think that business of being truthful to one's own self, not pretending to be, as they do so much in the theater, but actual being, where one is, where one stands in the moment and listens and talks his own person. No affectations, no sense of performing at all. One just is.
Paton taught us all in the school, first of all, that you could not do anything of worth as an artist unless you were a human being with worth. He taught us that each one of us had to search for our truth, and when we found it, to defend it no matter what the consequences. And he always said, your truth will not be ours, will not be mine, but your truth is important and you must defend it, no matter what the consequences.
I worked with him on this film. I really heckled him on this film, Sing Cowboy Sing. Here, he would get up and make a speech and say, I owe everything to Paton Price. He's here, my beloved friend, everything. And I'd get right behind him in the camera, and I'd give him a piece of advice, and he'd totally reject it.
Yeah.
I don't think he took one piece of advice I gave him through the whole film. Now, since the film has been very successful, then you will perhaps understand the quality of my American advice.
I first met Dean when we joined Warner Brothers, and we went to their, in 1960. So I've known Dean almost 25 years, headed towards 25 years. And he was in the acting class that was run by a man named Paton Price, who is kind of a mentor, a real close friend of both of us. And we spent a lot of time during the 1960, 61, right in that period. Dean was exceptionally good at acting. He was real good in the class. I was really bad, but Dean was quite good at it. And I didn't know Dean sang so well until he, I heard his records, at the time. He was a good singer, good actor. So as a performer, he's well-rounded and quite capable. He's also a gymnast, I'm sure that everybody knows that. But the last time I performed with him in East Berlin, Dean could still walk on his hands. I couldn't believe it.
Cuckoo, I swing right through the air. You'll come back to the ground. So many things will dear as there's no one we're around no more. Shall you be a crying no more? Swing right through the door, lift you off the floor, and you won't be crying no more.
He's his own manager. He always has been. He has had charge of his own destiny, and I've been absolutely amazed. Dean has done very, very well. He's worked at it. He's known where to put the emphasis. Standing out in the cold in East Germany, with me freezing to death by his side, autographing hundreds of pictures, and I'd say, hey, I'll see you inside. He wanted to do it because he knew that that picture meant something to those children that no one else could give them. Here was a famous person who could go anywhere in the world, who could live in any country in the world, and he chose them. He chose socialism.
Over in the Iron Curtain countries, his popularity is really unbelievable. I mean, when I'd stay at Dean's house a couple of times on the weekends if we weren't working, and if I wasn't in the hotel, I'd just go out and stay with them. And in the mornings, there'd be 15, 20 girls with flowers waiting for Dean to come out, and he gets mobbed after the show. And I've never been with him in a place that everybody in the entire place didn't know him. Over there, it's just phenomenal.
The American people do not know what this is like here, what the people are like who live in this country. And the greatest thing would be if we could bring all 240 million Americans and bring them here and let them know the Soviet people, let them know the society. It's a society that also has its mistakes.
The people are very, very responsive, very knowledgeable about what they listen to in East Berlin, where I played. I also played in we did a television show out of Karl Marx Stad. And it was really nice. The audiences are wonderful. As we all know, worldwide, people get on. And music is the most common language. And if the whole world were musicians, there wouldn't be any war.
I feel like I could die. Bye-bye, my love, goodbye. There goes my baby with someone new. She sure looks happy, I sure am blue. She was my baby till he stepped in. Goodbye to romance that might have been.
I think if Dean were working in the United States with success, with the same kind of success, that his compensation would be 1,000 times, maybe 10,000 times more than what he earns in East Germany. But I don't know if money would have been enough of a motivation for Dean to have done that, you know. I think he's just really very thoroughly involved in what he believes in, and as we all are, but it's just, his doesn't pay as well as it does in the capitalist system.
I'm sorry his popularity wasn't in this country, but he tried. Dean's records on the Capitol label, a couple that did pretty well. The one that hit in South America did pretty well, and they were playing it and playing it and playing it. Well, don't you know that's build up popularity.
Although the summer's gone, I'll try to carry on, although you won't be with me.
South America, of course, was a great surprise. We arrived, we went on an airplane, got on an airplane and flew down to Santiago. At that time in the United States, I was relatively unknown. The song, The Search, was a regional hit in some parts of Texas and Arizona and Colorado, but nothing more. That was the first record. The third record, Our Summer Romance, I had done on TV with Dick Clark, and I had made a tour of America, but it was not a national hit, although it was on the top 20 list and #1 in certain parts of America again. All of a sudden, I got on a plane, and when I got off the plane in Santiago, there were hundreds of thousands of people waiting for me at the airport with motorcades with police going into the city, going to bed at night with the whole plaza in front of the presidential palace screaming for me. Of course, this is a great shock to a young boy from Colorado.
Dean never tried to make it here. He had a choice. He can't be two places at once. He can't be making a career in South America and Italy and the Soviet Union and Czechoslovakia and East Germany and be here at the same time. I've heard this all over Europe. Why didn't he ever make it here? Well, you know how much time he's spent in America since he left to go to South America? I mean, in the United States? Less than a year, maybe not even 6 months, and that was visiting us. You see, I've absolutely no doubt that if he'd stayed here to make a commercial career, he would be as famous here as he is now in the socialist bloc.
He went to South America. He was a normal American boy, and he'd been to college 2 years, and he went to South America. There he saw where 10-15% of the people were very wealthy, and the great majority of them were at the low end of the totem pole, and there he began to get these not communistic but socialistic. And there's a difference. Don't ask me what it is, but he can take 10 or 15 minutes and he'll tell you the difference. He did that to me once, but I forgot most of it.
But South America was the most important, and South America changed my life because, of course, there one can see the great differences of justice and injustice, of poverty and wealth. They are so clear to see for anybody that you must take a stand. And sometimes I like to say, well, that there are three types of people in South America. There are blind people who don't want to see the truth. There are capitalists, and there are revolutionaries. And I was neither a capitalist nor was I blind, and there I became a revolutionary. Because in South America, you have to take a stand. You are either for the status quo, which means that for the 20% who have all of the wealth, all of the power, or you will stand on the side of the 80% who are illiterate, who are hungry, and who somehow want a better future. And I felt that this fame that I, by destiny, happened to have in South America had to be dedicated towards these 80%. When one way or another we're fighting for their liberation, and we're fighting for a better life, a life with dignity.
We are revolutionaries, and we'll win the battle. What the people say. San Martín ya nos mostró cuál rumbo hay que seguir.
I always sang for two different types of people. They had the most luxurious nightclubs in South America for the wealthy class, where I would sing at 11 o'clock for the dinner show and at 3 o'clock for the drunk show. Then they would sell me to the football stadiums, where then the masses could come and see me. There was too many contradictions all of a sudden. I didn't realize that there was such poverty in the world, and I started changing. I started working with the unions in South America, working for free for them. I would go to not only the hospitals, but the prisons and sing for free. And slowly I was becoming involved.
It was while he was living in South America. He would do some of the damnedest stunts. He was in Caracas, Venezuela one time, and he intentionally did something wrong, and they put him in jail. He wanted to be in jail so he could see the conditions in the jails of Venezuela. They let him out the next day when they found out who he was.
Who got the power? You. Who got the guns? You. Who got the planes to keep us always on the run? You. Who got the press to tell your dirty lies? You. Who got the banks to take all that money by? You get one and all will come and take his place in line. Well, you can afford and 100 more will fight till end of time.
The flag here that is hanging in the wall, of course, cost me to go to jail in Santiago, Chile. 1 week before the elections in 1970 in Chile, before Salvador Allende became president, I got this flag, and I went in front of the American consulate in Santiago and washed it and said that I, as a good American, want to wash this flag. The flag is dirty with the blood of the Vietnamese people, with the blood of the South Americans who are being exploited because of American imperialism, and that I, as a good American, I want to wash it within the great traditions of the American Revolution. And the police came and arrested me and took me to jail.
You know, some people have said that you washing this flag in Santiago was one of the reasons that Allende was elected, because he won by such a small margin of the popular vote.
Now, obviously, Allende won because he had the right politics and he was going to help his people. He did win only by less than 1%. At that time, of course, it was in every paper that I had been arrested, because everybody said it was very clear that the old government of Frey was only in president because he was supported by the American government. If an American, the Chilean said, if Dean, who's an American, cannot stand in front of his consulate and wash his flag without the Chilean police coming and putting him in a Chilean jail, then obviously we're a colony of America.
Oh boy, was he a big hero in Mexico City. This just shows his venturesome courage. There was a big fire going on down there, and there was an old man in there screaming, screaming, screaming. He was going to be burned. Dean got a blanket, soaked it in water, went in and carried the old man out. And I'm telling you, did he get publicity in Mexico City? Let me finish my story. And then from that to where he was singing in Helsinki, Finland, to an international peace conference. He met some interesting people there. Maybe he told you this. Some representatives from Mongolia were there, and they invited him to come to Mongolia. Well, I got a letter from him in Moscow, and the next letter I had was from Mongolia. I've got a picture in there of him and an old Mongolian monk.
In 1965, I was living in Argentina, and the Argentinian Peace Committee invited me to be part of the Argentinian delegation at this World Peace Council meeting. And I went representing Argentina at that time. And Valentina was there at that time, also representing the Soviet Union, and I decided to make an interview with her.
Estamos con la astronauta rusa, la primera mujer que hizo vuelo en el aire. Y es primero, más que nada, una mujer de todo. Está casada, tiene hija. Es bonita, como se puede dar cuenta. Y vamos a hacer algunas preguntas a ella.
And I took this interview back to Argentina and put it on my show, of course, without informing any of the authorities. It was a very interview talking about her personal life, talking about life in common.
¿Usted escucha la nueva ola alguna?
Вам нравится современная музыка, сказать, новая волна, как ее называют?
Я люблю хорошую песню.
And the next day, after showing it, the political police arrived at my home and asked me to come to their bureau in Buenos Aires, where it stayed. There was above the door a sign saying pro-Soviet, and they wanted to know how much the Soviets had paid me to make this film. Of course, they hadn't paid me anything, I'm sorry to say. But and they wanted to know, of course, why was I doing communist propaganda. I said I wasn't doing communist propaganda, that I believe that artists and sport and science are international. Those are the especially things that go across borderlines, and especially scientists and artists and sportsmen must believe in peace and work together. They are the vanguard of the fight for peace. You know, the politicians, somehow they always stay behind us, but somehow we have to get ahead.
Y traigan a la gente la canción buena, alegre, optimista.
Gracias.
And after that time, they began attacking my home and painting the hammer and the sickle on my house. And that was in '65, and this campaign developed and developed. So they had to make a law saying I put into danger the security of the nation. I was expelled from Argentina. Something else that was very important, the last evening in Helsinki, we had 7 artists were invited to give a concert. And during this Congress, it was the last Congress where the Chinese took part. And at this meeting, there was great problems, and they asked me to sing, to get the people quiet, and I began singing, and the Soviets were so impressed with how I got the people all to hold hands and started singing "We Shall Overcome," that I sang for about a half hour, and the Soviets invited me to come to Moscow, and the next day I was on a trip to Moscow.
The entertainers in Russia used to come out on the stage, stand there so straight up and down and so dignified and whatnot. Dean came out on the stage with a eye-striking costume on, and he jumped off of the stage, and he'd be singing while he did this. He'd jump off of the stage, and he'd go down and put his arm around some little girl and sing her a love song. At first, she was scared to death. Afterwards, she liked it. And he'd do the same thing with some gray-haired woman. He'd put his arms around her, and he just did it so differently than what they were accustomed to.
Dean Reed was one of the first singers to bring rock and roll to the Eastern Bloc. Until his performances throughout the Soviet Union in the mid-60s, American rock and roll and the country western music of America was seldom heard in concert.
Russian girls just adore him, and his style of behavior, the way he talks to the audience, the way he finds the contact with the audience is really interesting, and it involves people in the action that's happening on the stage. And he's dedicated to the struggle against many evils of our times and against political oppression as well.
After I got expelled from Argentina, I went to Spain, and of course was not allowed to work in Spain under the Franco dictatorship. Then I went to Italy. I was asked to make a film, a Western film.
Valentine, hi.
Valentine, здравствуй.
It's been so long.
Как давно я тебя не видела.
Favorite model, aren't I?
Never quite я твое любимое платье надела.
Of course, at that time, these spaghetti westerns were very, very popular throughout the world, and I made these type of films in Italy. I starred in 8 films in Italy during the 3 years that I was there, and worked for the peace movement in Italy at that time. At that time, of course, the war in Vietnam was going on. The American aggression in Vietnam was taking place, and I had sung at many demonstrations against the war in Vietnam in Italy. But one Sunday in Italy, for example, when you have a demonstration, Will, you have to ask permission from the police. And since the progressive forces were very strong in Italy, most of the time the police granted approval. But one Sunday, there was a demonstration in front of the American embassy in Rome, which they had asked permission, and it was not granted, and I had not known anything about it. And I had gone into town to Via Veneto to have a glass of orange juice or something, and I passed the embassy, it's right next door, and there was a great amount of police, 3 lines of police cordoning off the U.S. embassy. And there were the demonstrators. And so I stopped my car, and so this was, for some reason, this day I had my passport with me and I had a tie on. I don't know why I never have a tie on, nor do I ever have my passport. I even got married without a tie. And I went up to the first line of police and I said, "Hey, I'm with the American embassy, let me pass." And they said, "Si, signore, si, signore." And I went to the second line and said, "Hey, I'm with the American ambassador, let me pass." "Si, signore," to the third line, right on by. Until I got to the front door of the American embassy, and there was the American ambassador, and there was the head of the police, the political police. And you know him in Italy because they have an old law that he has the 3 colori, the 3 colors of the Italian flag. When he has that on, it means he can arrest for political reasons. He had that on, they were talking. I came up, they didn't even notice me, by their side. I turned toward the crowd. I went with my fist and I said, "Compagni," means comrades. "Viva Ho Chi Minh!" The two went and almost broke their necks doing it and said, "Who is he? Who is he?" Dean who? Almost again. Said, "Who is he? Arrest him! Arrest him!"
There he rides into the night with his gun and sword and dedicates his life to the weak and to the poor. When indeed they call for sorrow.
Dean's politics are, you know, the exact opposite of mine. I supported Reagan when Reagan ran for president, and, you know, that's not something Dean would do, but it's something I believe in. And it's interesting, too. One of the main things about Dean and I is that we differ totally on our politics, but we're able to be friends, and we've been good friends, and we have a lot of fun together, too. In fact, most of our time isn't spent talking about politics unless we're joking, and we just spend our time laughing and things like that.
I had tried to return to Argentina 4 times from Italy. This time, a group of revolutionaries got me into Argentina, and there I gave a press conference. They all, of course, asked me, "How did you get here? How did you get here?" And I said, "On the winds of justice that are starting to fly over Argentina." About 2 hours later, I was arrested, taken to the main prison of Argentina in Buenos Aires. A very nice story about arriving in prison. Of course, when you go to prison, well, of course, throughout the world, you have to take your fingerprints, and then you have to get your hair cut. And we arrived in the night to prison. They said, "Okay, Dean, we got to cut your hair. Another prisoner will do it." So we went through the jail, it's a large prison. And in Argentina, homosexuality is against the law, and homosexuals are in prison. And as they took me through, on the right side was a great big cell with about 40 homosexuals in it, and I have never seen such makeup in my life. They had made it from salad, red and blue and green, and they all recognized me. In Argentina, I had been very famous. They all said, Dean Reed, give him to us, give him to us." And I had never been so afraid in my life. And the colonel said, "You go in there if you're not good, Dean." Now, yeah. They cut my hair. About 10 days after being in jail, one day the police came in and said, "Dean, you got anything to wash?" You know, and it was in wintertime. And I don't like to wash very much, only flags, nothing else. Well, and I said, "Yeah." And they said, "None of the homosexuals like to do it, and if you can pay something." So I completely stripped nude, and I had my winter coat over me. The next day I said, "Hey," it was getting cold. I said, "Hey, where's my clothes?" And the police came and said, "We're sorry, Dean, we'll get them for you." About 10 minutes later, they came back with a smile on his face and said, "Dean, we got a small problem to tell you." And I said, "What's wrong? Where's my clothes?" And they said, "Dean, the homosexuals tore all of your clothes into little pieces as souvenirs from Dean Reed." And so I didn't get any more clothes until my attorney brought them to me the next week. He could see me once a week. But anyway, I stayed that time for 21 days in prison. And so on the 21st day, I was taken to the airport and sent back to Italy.
Wohin wandert ihr?
Zu meinem Glück.
After returning to Italy, Dean starred in the only East German-West German co-production in history, Aus dem Leben eines Tagenikts, in English, The Life of a Good-for-Nothing. While it may seem strange to the Germans that an American was chosen to play the lead role in this classic German story, what some Americans may find strange is Dean's second role in the Eastern Bloc, Kit & Co., the film rendering of Jack London's novel about the gold rush and gambling days in Alaska.
Alaska braucht Männer!
Here, the saloon entertainer sings Alaska Needs Men in German on a set in Bulgaria with a socialist film cast. It was here that he met the woman who he now considers the great love of his life, Renate Blume.
Only through destiny do I live in the GDR. If I had not grown in love, I would not have lived in the GDR. Here, all of a sudden, by chance, I'm in love with somebody who lives in a socialist country. Here is an opportunity to see what socialism is like in practice, not only in the hotels, where I'd always only stayed in hotels. That wasn't socialism, I knew. And I thought, here's an opportunity. I can learn German, and I can see what is socialism like in practice.
Ich hätte nicht gedacht, dass Sie so weit kommen würden.
You gonna drink coffee today? Willst du Kaffee trinken heute? Oh, nö. Nee? Aha.
Hm?
Oh, du machst das viel besser als in Kitten.
Renate Blume is one of the most famous actresses in the socialist cinema. For her starring role as Jenny Marx in the 8-hour film special, The Early Years of Karl Marx, she was awarded the Order of Lenin for Art and Literature.
Ich will nicht, dass du so vernünftig wirst.
Wir haben sehr gut zusammengearbeitet. Er war ein guter Partner, aber ich war sehr misstrauisch. Ich wusste nicht, was dieser Amerikaner bei uns will. Und ich habe befürchtet, dass er die Politik benutzt, um Karriere zu machen. Es hat viele Jahre gebraucht, bis ich erkannt habe, wer er ist und wie ehrlich er ist.
Mancher geht mit dem Glück so um, als gäbe es davon genug. Dann wundert er sich, dass ihm viel zu oft...
Er ist unordentlich, er lässt alles liegen. Seine Schuhe, seine Bücher, sein Papier, alles bleibt liegen. Er liebt nur Cowboy Boots. Only Cowboy Boots. Es ist terrible.
I am starting to write my own scripts. I've written now 3 scripts. The last 3 films I wrote myself. And now I'm going into directing. But I believe also that I want to reach masses of people. And film work, for example, or songs, obviously you can reach more masses than books. The majority of the people in the world are still illiterate. They don't know how to read. But they do go to the film houses.
Hierher, hierher! Wenn ihr unter der Fahne der weißen Männer steht, kann euch nichts geschehen. Kommt her, bleibt zusammen. Hier seid ihr sicher.
The first screenplay written by Dean Reed was titled Blood Brothers. It is based on the massacre of the Sand Creek Indian tribe in Colorado. It was filmed in Bulgaria and became the Eastern Bloc's most commercially successful film of 1975.
Im Beisein des Häuptlings wechselt ihr einige kurze Gelübde und jetzt... Ja, was jetzt?
Jetzt seid ihr Mann und Frau.
Mein Mann, immer mein Mann. Er ist mein Freund, mein Geliebter, mein Compañero. Wir sagen, Compañero schließt alles ein. Ich möchte mit ihm leben, mit ihm arbeiten, ihn lieben. Er ist der Mann, den ich mein ganzes Leben lang gesucht habe und an den ich nicht mehr geglaubt habe.
Did he go away? If he'd only stay with us. Why did they hurt him so? Why did he have to go? Oh.
I went back in 1978 to the United States because I had made a film called El Cantor here in the GDR, for GDR television, which was dedicated to a friend of mine, Victor Jara, who was a singer in Chile who was murdered by the fascists in 1973. I made a feature film about him, and I had been invited to America by some of the universities to show this film. And I went to Minnesota to show the film at the University of Minnesota in Minneapolis. And when I was in Minneapolis, a group of progressive people came to me and said, we're going to have a meeting on Sunday against the second largest coal company of America, who are building these great power lines across the land of farmers only to make profit for themselves. And the farmers are against these power lines. And so I was there. Clyde Bellecourt was there, the leader of AIM. I sang and gave a speech, and 20 of us were arrested. 19 of us stayed in jail. 10 of us went on a hunger strike until our liberty or our death, and we stayed on hunger strike for 11 days. On the 12th day, we were given our trial. After 3 days of trial, we were declared not guilty, of course. The point is, of course, I say, because it was only of course because there was an international movement of solidarity for us, from the socialist countries especially, and from South America. Thousands of telegrams arrived at President Carter at that time saying, please release Dean Reed. How can you arrest a man for singing a song?
There's a lot of people in the United States that would have a political attitude maybe that would be similar to Dean that we all are aware of in the United States. But Dean lives his politics. And I have a lot of respect for a man that lives his principles, and it's all well and good to have an idea and live here under this system, but Dean actually lives it and really works for it.
Just today on NBC, heard the latest info, Angola and Lebanon, crazy Pentagon keeps it marching on, but before it is too late, come on with me, brother, let's try to stop them, let's try to beat them.
In 1962, Will, I think, was the first time that I truly fell out of grace with the American government. Because at that time, I was in Santiago, Chile, and I had read a book by Linus Pauling against the armaments race, against atomic testing, telling of the dangers of atomic testing. So I took out personal ads in all the newspapers with my own money, asking the people of South America to send letters to President Kennedy and to President Brezhnev, asking for the stopping of all atomic testing. At that time, the American government, through its embassies in Peru, in Santiago, Chile, tried to stop all of my activities in television, in radio, and that was the first of the snowball that then started rolling.
I asked to see my CA file, but I don't believe they gave me all of it. I think there's a conspiracy of silence about my life and about what I've done. Not only do they want to make me look like a traitor to the American people, but they'd rather just kind of hush it up.
It's because the whole policy of the journalism in the United States, the media, is to blacken the eye of the socialist countries. And there is nothing truthful that I've seen in the American press about the socialist countries. They may have some facts about that are truthful, if a fact can be truth, but they are not truthful, nor do they intend to be.
I believe that I have more information than the average American because of the fact that I have both. I read Time and I read Newsweek, and I watch the news program every evening from the GDR and from West Germany, both of them. And then I make my own judgment as to who has the most truth. It's almost nothing is black and white in this world.
Ausgangssperren zu verhängen, Verhaftungen ohne richterliche Weisung zu befehlen, sowie Ausweisungen und Verbannungen anzuordnen.
By far, at least 17 people were killed, as many as 1,200 arrested yesterday. And the question now, Mary Speck reports, is how many such days of protest can the military regime survive?
It was the worst violence in Santiago since the bloody coup that overthrew President Salvador Allende in 1973.
More than 30 people have died so far in clashes with police and soldiers in the past 4 months.
As this newscast was being broadcast in America of August of 1983, Dean Reed returned to Chile. It was the first time he had been in Chile since the military coup that overthrew the democratic government of Salvador Allende. Dean was warned by the Chilean police that he was not to do a concert to benefit anyone. Here, in the copper mining town of Rancagua, people brought food donations for the miners who had lost their jobs because they had tried to strike. That night, Dean sang a song that had been banned in Chile since the military dictatorship of Pinochet took control 10 years earlier. He sang it for an old friend of his.
Creo que ustedes lo conocen. Un gran patriota chileno, Salvador Allende. El último presidente constitucional de Chile. Desde el hondo crisol de la patria se levanta el clamor popular, ya se anuncia la nueva alborada, todo Chile comienza a cantar, recordando Salvador Allende, cuyo ejemplo se hiciera inmortal. Enfrentemos primero a la muerte, traicionar a la patria jamás. Venceremos, venceremos, mil cadenas habrá que romper. Venceremos, venceremos, al fascismo sabremos vencer. Venceremos, venceremos, mil cadenas habrá que romper. Venceremos, venceremos, al fascismo sabremos vencer. Al fascismo sabremos vencer. A vencer de la patria también, estudiantes privados y negros, cumpliremos con nuestro deber, compraremos la tierra de costa, la democracia será el porvenir, todos juntos haremos la historia, a cumplir, a cumplir, a cumplir. Venceremos, venceremos, las cadenas habrá que romper. Venceremos, venceremos, al fascismo sabremos vencer. Venceremos, venceremos, las cadenas habrá que romper. Venceremos, venceremos, al fascismo sabremos vencer. Unido, jamás será vencido. El pueblo unido, jamás será vencido.
Immediately after this concert, the home where Dean was staying was surrounded by 60 armed Chilean police. He was expelled on the next plane out of Chile.
I call myself a revolutionary artist, and I have a feeling that if I call myself that, I have to also be willing and ready to do this, to risk my own life in the same way that those other people whom I'm inspiring with my songs or with my films or with my poetry are risking their lives and their liberty. And I'd like to try to remain an honest revolutionary by showing I'm ready to do the same.
Ghost riders in the sky. Yippee-yi-yi, yippee-yi-yi. riders in the sky. The rider opened by him, he heard one call his name. If you want to save your soul from hell, riding on a range. And Cowboy Gina waits to down with his you will ride, trying to catch the devil's head that crosses in the skies. Yippee-yi-yi, yippee-yi. Ghost riders in the sky. Ghost riders in the sky.
The government policy, the United States government, is a policy of genocide against the Palestinian people. So I think it was important that I went there to the south of Lebanon and to say that I'm ready also to risk my life to defend the south of Lebanon. At that time, there was a fear of invasion from the Zionists. Later, the Zionists invaded. This is very difficult for my wife, Renate. She can only, in her fantasy, know what is happening to me in Lebanon or when I go to Chile or to Nicaragua or someplace else. And of course, she has a great amount of fear of these trips. And I am afraid that she cries a lot when I leave.
Ich fühle Angst. Aber ich verstehe ihn und ich lasse ihn gehen. Ich kann ihn nicht festhalten. Wenn ich ihn festhalten würde, er würde unglücklich. Und er muss dorthin fahren. Aber es ist nicht leicht.
Hast du etwas, was du sagen willst zu dem amerikanischen Volk?
Ich kenne das amerikanische Volk nicht. Ich könnte nur etwas zu allen Völkern sagen oder zu allen Menschen. Dass ich auch hoffe, dass wir uns alle verstehen, dass wir die Schwierigkeiten, die unsere verschiedenen Gesellschaftsordnungen mit sich bringen, überwinden und dass wir alle eine gemeinsame Sprache finden.
Si se cae el cantor, muere la rosa. ¿Y de qué sirve la rosa sin el canto? Debe el canto ser luz sobre los campos, iluminando siempre a los del abajo. Que no cae el canto.
This is a very poor country, Nicaragua. The only crime they ever made was that 5 years ago they overthrew a very corrupt dictatorship of the family of Somoza, who had ruled the country as their own private enterprise with the help of the United States government, of course, for many, many years. The people wanted only to have a revolution so they could eat and have something in their bellies. The CIA is sabotaging the first schools these young children ever had. They're sabotaging and mining hospitals with new people for the first time they've ever had. I thought that if I came here as an American and could sing and could talk to them, maybe in some way it would help inspire them to continue the fight against the forces of the CIA and the monopolies which are trying to sabotage this revolution.
Si se cae el cantor, cae la vida.
Cualquiera. I don't think that culture is an enemy to any people. I don't think that the American culture is an enemy to the people in socialism. I don't believe that the Chilean culture is an enemy to the Nicaraguan people. I don't believe that the Soviet culture is an enemy to the American people. I think that all people should have the right to see the culture of other foreign nationalities and countries and also defend their own culture at the same time.
This is a song of Martin Luther King.
Это песня, которую пел Мартин Лютер Кинг.
It began with the civil rights movement.
Ее начали петь участники движения за гражданские права.
It spread throughout the world.
И сейчас эта песня распространилась по всему
You
миру.
know, I've sung this song in prison in Argentina.
Я пел эту песню в тюрьме в Аргентине.
I've sung it to the peasants in Bangladesh.
Я пел эту песню крестьянам в Бангладеш.
I've sung it to the Palestinian fighters in the south of Lebanon.
Я пел ее борцам-палестинцам на юге Ливана.
Let's sing it tonight, here in Moscow together.
Давайте ее споем сегодня, здесь, в Москве, все вместе.
We shall overcome.
Мы преодолеем.
My residence for 20 years has been outside the United States. But I remain an American citizen, and I would prefer to remain an American citizen. I am an American. I'm a product of this society. And I'm very proud of my people. I'm very proud of our great traditions, I think, of the American Revolution.
So what does it mean when you say you are a revolutionary?
Revolution, I believe, first of all, that means that I'm ready to risk my life, though, to give my life in one way or another, to make life a little bit better for some other human being in this world. It means that I do not believe that you can truly, within the system of capitalism, make it into a just system for all. I don't believe that. Through reforms. I believe that there has to be in the system a radical change, a revolutionary change, meaning it takes one leap from a quantitative to a qualitative step, and that means it will change to a socialist system. That doesn't mean it will be by arms, taking up arms. It doesn't mean that people will have to die. Obviously, I'm a revolutionary because I want to save people's lives, not because I want to take them. Some people have to fight for the liberation, as in El Salvador. Because of a military dictatorship, they have no other means to defend their rights and defend the right that they have to eat, to live in peace, to work. They must do it through the force of arms. But obviously in the United States it would come about in a completely different way.
Everybody's talking about a bagism, shagism, dragism, madism, ragism, tagism, thisism, thatism. Isn't it the most Hare Hare Krishna? All we are saying is give peace a chance.
We say America is the freest country of the world. And I would answer yes, probably so. You have the freedom in America to be unemployed and to have fear of not having enough to eat. Nobody has this fear. There is no unemployment in socialism. You can have this special freedom in the United States, as my father, for example, who worked his whole life, and yet when he writes in a letter that he's had a toothache for a year, but he hasn't gone to the dentist because it costs so much money. That's unbelievable. I tell that to my friends in the socialist countries. They say, come on, you must be exaggerating, Pete, because all medical facilities are free of charge. There are a lot of different types of freedom. So I would say that I feel that I am in a free society, in socialism.
His voice failed him once over there, and he was in the same hospital that Kosygin goes to. He wrote back in glowing terms, "Why, Dad, it didn't cost me anything." In other words, he was trying to emphasize the advantages of socialism. He and I stay off of political philosophy when we get together because we are both Reeds, and we have some definite ideas. I looked back down many times and wished he'd have continued with meteorology at Colorado University. He'd have had a nice, quiet life, maybe.
I now understand why there is no unemployment in the German Democratic Republic.
Jetzt verstehe ich, warum in der Deutschen Demokratischen Republik niemand beschäftigungslos ist.
It is the largest orchestra I have ever seen.
There was a time in the GDR where I sang some songs at a political concert which the government did not agree with, which certain functionaries of the government did not agree with. I was not allowed to sing for a week in the GDR until I had time to make an appointment with some friends of mine who were in the Politburo. And then everything was organized and said, "Dean, it's all right. We won't do anything against the bureaucratic class who is afraid of making a mistake, and we won't do anything against you." But most of these mistakes, if there is a censorship, it's usually from little tiny people in the bureaucracy, in the bureaucratic class of socialism, who want to keep holding on to their chairs and not make a mistake, so they'd rather not do anything. If you go to the people in the Central Committee, these people are usually very, very liberal, and one can do and say what one wants. Not everybody can go to the Central Committee, and that's exactly why I go. Because I believe that in the same way that I am fighting to change society, or in Chile, or etc., where I'm fighting an enemy, as long as I'm living in socialism, I believe I also have to be honest and to try to make socialism a better socialism.
What about returning to the U.S.? Would you like to return there, to live there someday?
I think, well, that's a difficult question. Nobody knows one's future. If I asked you, are you going to get married one or two times more in your life? You'd say, I don't know. I don't know. As you know, I'm a Marxist. I'm a socialist. It's not that easy to work in the United States when you have the views which I have and the values which I have. Here in the GDR, of course, I work with people who agree with me, who have the same ideals which I have. I have no fear here of being shot at. I have no fear that somebody's going to throw a bomb at my house. I have no fear that when I leave my wife and my child here at home that somebody's going to come and kidnap them, which these fears I would have in America. I feel a security from my old age, of course, for my children. One doesn't know. Perhaps I would go back if the right conditions were there. I will not give up my integrity nor my dignity. I want to be creative and productive. But that one can be creative and productive in any country if one has the right circumstances.
Dean hat oft Heimweh. Träumt davon, irgendwann wieder nach Hause zu fahren. Liebt das Lachen der Amerikaner. Hat nie so gelacht wie zum Beispiel mit Phil Eberly. Ich habe sie beide zusammen gesehen. Sie waren zwei kleine Jungs, zwei Little Children. Und sie lachten und lachten. Und liebt seine Sprache, seine Kultur und liebt sein Volk.
What do you think are Dean's main strengths?
That sort of stick-to-itiveness. He never gives up. A lot of courage, a lot of belief in people. I've never seen him distrust a person or to let a person down. Even when I think he should distrust the person, there's no way he's going to do that. His loyalty, his belief in the world, that we will manage a peaceful world.
Und so wie ein Straßenheer, alles voll Besehr. Doch nun schlafe gut und sacht, dieser erste Nacht. Mariana, Mariana, heißt Mariana, ne?
People say, Dean, are you a protest singer? are you a pop singer? Are you a country singer? Are you a rock singer? And I say, I'm a love singer. But there are many different types of love. There's love for little children, whether they're mine or the children throughout the world. There's romantic love for my wife. There's love for a walk in the park. There's love for justice, for truth. And I think that an artist should talk about all of these aspects of love, and that I try to do in my songs. Many people criticize me for that, because then I can't fit into any category. I say life is many-sided, and human beings have many different types of needs.
I don't think it's changed a bit. He still has no money in his pocket. He doesn't have any more money in his pocket now than he had when he was here that first day I met him. And I don't know how he lives, but I think he ought to get more royalty off his songs. I think that they were written in blood, and I think he should be better compensated.
What makes Dean Reed tick? If it's not money, if it's not... Why is he ambitious that way?
Love makes Dean Reed tick. That sounds corny, but it's absolutely true. And it isn't personal love I'm talking about. It is his involvement, his concern for his fellow man.
What is your religion? Do you believe in God?
I believe in progress. I believe in peace. I believe in goodness, the ultimate goodness of mankind. I believe in cooperation between nations. I believe in that ultimate truth will win out. And I think all of those things are also, I have noticed that also Christians believe in, Muslims believe in, Buddhists believe in, Hindus believe in. We all agree, and the main goal in life is to make life a better place for man. So somehow that he has his dignity, to somehow that he can somehow will be encouraged to develop all of his capabilities that he has to become an integrable human being. And those are my goals, and those goals I have in common with all religions.
But that's begging the question, do you believe in God?
I don't believe in an official God, no. I am an atheist in that. But of course Americans have great fear of this word atheism. I don't think it's important if one believes in a God, and how can you define it? Every Christian defines it in a different way. I believe in the principles that Jesus was talking about. Jesus was the greatest revolutionary, one of the greatest of all time. Here was a worker man. Here was a working man. Here was a man who told us each of us should fight and give our help to other human beings, should give of our love and give of our resources to other human beings. That is what a Marxist believes in. There's nothing that divides Marxists and Christians. There's much more that unites us and divides us.
Well, back in Colorado, in those days when I was young, had my hopes and dreams of things like most everyone. So I left all my songs to sing and fame I finally found. But nobody knows me back in my hometown. Oh, nobody knows me back in my hometown. My name is known in half the world. I'm called a superstar. I've shook the hands of presidents. I've traveled near and far. But deep inside I feel the hurt that sometimes gets me down. Nobody knows me back in my hometown. Oh, nobody knows me back in my hometown. One of these days I'm gonna go back home and walk those streets again. I'm gonna sing some songs, right some wrongs that I did to my old friend. And I'll tell the home folks where I've been, so I'll never hear again that nobody knows me back in my hometown. Oh, and nobody knows me back in my hometown. I've made my share of movies, I've seen my name in lights, I've done what others dream about on long cold winter nights. I've climbed that ladder of success with that good old country sound, but nobody knows me back in my hometown. Oh, nobody knows me back in my hometown. If I could have one yesterday to change one tick of time, I'd choose that day in Denver when I left my friends behind. I'd tell them I'd be back someday if they'd just stay around, but nobody knows me back in my hometown. Oh, nobody knows me back in my hometown. One of these days I'm gonna go back home and walk those streets again. I'm gonna sing some songs and right some wrongs that I did to my old friends. Then I'll tell the home folks where I've been so I'll never hear again that nobody knows me back in my hometown. Oh, nobody knows me back in my hometown. Yeah, that's gonna change. Nobody knows me back in my hometown. I'm going back home. Nobody knows me back in my hometown.